Hello, everybody. It is Wednesday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Adam Bittner, Assistant Sports Editor for Multimedia at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Joined for the Wednesday edition of the North Shore Drive podcast by Christopher Carter, our Steelers insider. We're going to be talking about Aaron Rodgers. How's he coming across as a teammate? We're not going to talk so much about football, but we've gotten a lot of comments in our YouTube channel about Aaron Rodgers is surprising people in a positive way in terms of how he's coming across. We're going to talk to Chris about all of that. Before we do, just want to thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Edgar Snyder Associates. Law firms come and go, but what law firm has been here in Western PA fighting for injury victims for more than 40 years? It's Edgar Snyder Associates. What firm has a staff of over 130 people who live and work here? It's Edgar Snyder Associates. Law firms come and go, but Edgar Snyder is a name you can always trust. So remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. If you've been hurt in an accident, call them at 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit www.edgarsnyder.com. They're available 24/7. Okay, Chris, let's get into it with Aaron Rodgers a little bit. I wanted to ask you about a quote from Skylar Thompson that's been making the rounds, just not just locally, but nationally as well, talking about Aaron Rodgers. He said, I think he gets misinterpreted a lot because people judge a book by its cover and don't really know him. I'm not claiming to really know him, but just being around him on a daily basis, he's a good dude, cares about his teammates, holds people accountable. There's a real desire for greatness that he expects all the time, and that's been a great perspective for me. He comes in every day with a smile on his face. Whatever music is playing, you see him singing sometimes. Sometimes you see him playing air guitar. You can just tell he's in his safe place. He's just himself every single day. When we're off the field, he loves being around the guys. He's not too big for anyone. That's really cool because not everybody is like that, and he wants to be just like everybody else, just a really good dude. How much of that have you observed with him, Chris? Just from, obviously there's still a level of distance. You're not behind the scenes all the time, but you are seeing how he's interacting with his teammates on the practice field, around the facility. Is that what you've been observing with him, and that his circus reputation is much more tied to his personal opinions that he expresses on his personal time than what he's doing at work?
Yeah, I gotta say, Aaron Rodgers is not, at least in my interactions with him, in the things that I've seen with him with the Steelers, I haven't seen the circus. When I've asked him questions, there's the times where there's times I asked Ben Roethlisberger questions, and he would give me kind of a dismissive answer, and it wouldn't be like a crazy question. It'd be like, hey, what about this? Or what about that? And he would just bah. And there's times that he would do that, and I'm like, okay, well, he is a Hall of Fame quarterback, so I guess if he doesn't want to answer things, he doesn't have to answer things. But I've asked Aaron Rodgers at least 5 or 6 questions now since he's been signed by the Steelers, and each time he gives me like a multi-paragraph answer and one that does not come off as dismissive. So at least in my personal interactions with him, I don't see it, but also in the team interactions, everything I see is that he's just like, hey man, just want to play football, just want to win football. He jokes around with people. I think he's sarcastic, which, at first people are probably like, wait, what? And then they're like, oh wait, no, he's actually like funny. And so I think that that's something that you're seeing some of the Steelers kind of get used to. Like when you looked at his appearance on Cam Heyward's Not Just Football podcast, where he kind of gave Cam Heyward a hard time because Cam Heyward made his comments about you either want to be a Steeler or you're not. But like, it's obviously he didn't take it too personal because he showed up on his show and he was joking with him. And I think that's the thing about Aaron Rodgers. Like, it still doesn't change, if you like the things that he said about, vaccinations, or how you feel about what he says things away from football, or the times where you saw him like kind of scoff at Robert Saleh on the sideline on national television, and then like the next day Robert Saleh was fired, and it was just kind of like, those are the things that I think that people associate with Aaron Rodgers and think, oh man, this guy's a diva, this guy, he's just out for himself, he doesn't care about anybody else. I think those are the things that you're going to hear people associate with him and say like that this isn't what you want to have around. But I think these are also things that Mike Tomlin was like, hey, that's not going to be a problem for us. We're going to make this work. And at least, so far, I'll say the fair thing about those, if you're a critic of Aaron Rodgers, you're probably saying, well, he hasn't lost a game yet. And that's true. It's easy to be funny and friendly and cool when you haven't lost a game, when there's no one in your face and on your case about something that you're frustrated about, a loss. But at least right now, and I said this when they signed him, he is not come into Pittsburgh making demands. When the Jets signed him, they signed him for $40+ million a year. Throw it through the boat at him. They hired coaches he wanted. They hired receivers he wanted. They changed everything around him. The Steelers aren't doing that. They're still they're changing how their offense operates because they're going to try to give him some weapons. They got him DK Metcalf. It looks like Arthur Smith is opening up the middle part of the field. Now with the passing offense, we'll see if that maintains into the regular season. But you haven't seen this sort of like overhaul of how the team is going to operate. And I think that's kind of what he's excited to see in general.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, Chris, which was, why do you think that is? Do you think he was humbled in New York and saw that maybe the GM role that he was almost setting himself in some ways was not what he wanted, and now he's in a place where he can just go to work every day as the quarterback? Do you think it's because the Steelers told him up front, this is how we're doing business, you can get in or get out on that? Why do you think it is that things seem to be different, overall? And I'll even throw out there, we're not seeing him buy a big flashy house like he did in New York either. We all saw the giant house in New York. I don't know that anyone knows where he lives in Pittsburgh, and if it's like a big mansion or anything, it might just be, an apartment somewhere. What's your read on why he seems different compared to the way he was in New York and the way he approached that situation, coming off of Green Bay, where maybe he wanted a little bit more control? Now it seems like he kind of wants to go back to that type of situation.
I don't know if humble is the right word, because I can't say that was the thing that he wasn't humble with New York, because I wasn't there, and I think that's if I'm being honest there, I will say I think that he is more so excited because in New York, like, the Jets are just not a good organization. Like, for all the things that you could say about the Steelers and their lack of playoff success in recent history, the Jets do so many just outlandish things. They are all over the place. There's a reason why the Steelers are at least, a model of stability in a lot of ways. Mike Tomlin's part of that, but even before Mike Tomlin, this team has had 3 head coaches since 1969. There's a way that they go about themselves. There's a tradition, and I think when you're around those type of things, it's settling, right? Like, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to come to Pittsburgh and say, we got to reset the football culture here. No, because there is a football culture, and there's a lot of respect for the history of football in Pittsburgh. And I think it's that not having to do that is kind of an ease on him. So he's kind of like, you know what? I'm happy to not do this. I'm happy to just be one of the guys and just go. And this, it might be easier for him to just go win football games instead of having to be the driving force there. And so maybe it is humbling. Maybe there's a sense that, like, hey, you know what? I thought I was the man who I could just do everything, and basically orchestrate everything the way I wanted it to, and it would work out the way I wanted. And now I see I can't do that. So let me go to an organization that, has their own thing and just be part of that. Maybe that's the case. But I've just gotten the sense of more so gratitude from Aaron Rodgers to be around the guys. Like, when I talk to other players about him, guys are just like even back in like mini camp when he showed up and didn't even practice. Like, I talked to players on the team that like will shoot me straight, and they're like, he comes across genuine, man. Like, I'm actually really excited that he's here. And I was kind of like, okay, cool. We'll see how this goes in training camp. And I have not gotten a whiff of anything that suggests otherwise in training camp or since they've returned to the South Side.
Chris, how is he handling his business compared to Russell Wilson a year ago? Because there were positive feelings about him coming in. Is it similar in the way Russell Wilson handled that type of stuff? Or are you noticing something different? And I guess you can even tie, toward the end of Ben Roethlisberger's career, obviously he was much more established than both of those guys coming in here. But what have you seen about how he, conducts himself in comparison to those other, likely or potential Hall of Fame quarterbacks?
I feel like part of the problem with Russell Wilson was that Russell Wilson wanted to be this really positive guy. And when he answered your question, he had like boxes to check in what he was saying. Like, he would, like, we would joke in the media because he would say, like, like if you asked him a question, he would somehow work in the fact that the Steelers have the best fan base and they're just so awesome. And like there were certain like things you're like, okay, here comes this, here comes that, as he it's like things he had to qualify in each of his answers. And I don't think that was a bad thing, but it was just Russell Wilson's way of being like, hey, let me show appreciation for where I'm at. But when you do stuff like that, it comes across as not as genuine. It comes across as like, man, this is forced. This is phony. What'd you say?
A shtick.
A shtick, right. And so I think that's where when people call Russell Wilson corny, it's because I think that's just how he operates. And I think it also wears thin with the players, right? Like you remember the Bengals game. They lose the Bengals game at the regular season finale. Cam Heyward, who's dealing with a flu, is just like, after the game, as you can see, he's just like, this is rough. This is our 4th loss in a row. We're still in the playoffs. And you see Russell Wilson say, hey, man, we just got to go win 3 in a row. And you just see Cam Heyward just be like, not right now, man. Like I think that was just the thing, is that like Russell Wilson had this gold retriever energy at times when it was just like, buddy, you're not playing like the golden retriever, and that's the problem. And I think Aaron Rodgers, I think he doesn't bring that kind of energy, but he does bring an accountability that's like, hey, like I've seen when he throws a pass and like someone doesn't run the route that he wants, he'll talk to him and be like, hey, this, that, let's go. And he'll go through it with him after the practice rep, and when the special teams is out on the field, like he talks through these things, and you don't see a fanfare about it. He just kind of just goes about and does it. I think that's something that the players are kind of appreciating right now. They're like, hey, like, there's time. You don't want to let that guy down. Jalen Ramsey talked about that on the pivot. He also talked about that, when we talked to him. I talked to Broderick Jones about that. I was like, is there a sense that like you don't want to let this guy down? He's like, duh. He's like, that's Aaron Rodgers. You want to let that guy down? And it's like, I think that presence is boosting, or at least challenging guys to play to a level that's like, there's a respect that dude's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And as good as Russell Wilson is, and, he has a Super Bowl, and his as good as he had been in his career, even though he's significantly younger, he was significantly younger last year than when Aaron Rodgers is this year, he still ain't Aaron Rodgers comparatively. So I do think that there is a level of that the Steelers are just appreciating a bit more.
Chris, thanks for your perspective on that. I think a lot of people have been curious because we haven't gotten to see a ton of him, in the super public settings yet. It's mostly been up at Latrobe and behind closed doors at the Rooney Sports Complex. So appreciate hearing from you on that. Everyone else, please stay tuned. We are going to be talking about the players we're excited to see. A lot more starters expected to play in the preseason finale against Carolina on Thursday. We're going to get Chris's perspective on which guys he's looking forward to seeing. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you like this video if you enjoyed it. Help us out in the YouTube algorithm, and we'll talk to you on the other side.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.